Good morning, everyone. I'm Bobby Spiegel. I'm the president and CEO for the Corona Chamber of Commerce. I'm very honored and privileged to open up today's meeting. This happens every single Wednesday for those that are watching this on the recording. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m., we give a short briefing update on what is going on in the state of California or sometimes on local matters. And this is a standing committee that we have within the Chamber of Commerce. It is through our advocacy and outreach that we do to help inform our business community, and everyone is always welcome to participate. We have a person that actually chairs this event, and he is Jeff Miller. Jeff is a former state assembly member representing our area and did a stellar job. You know, we're in the political season now, and it's if I could just have one wish, we could go back in time to treat people with dignity and respect, even if we have different views politically. We've really come to an area now, not signally here in Corona, but throughout our nation, and it's just horrific. And I would hope that we can get back to the way that we used to be. And back then, we had an assemblyman by the name of Jeff Miller, who worked with both sides of the aisles, who did things with tact and ability and knowledge and grace, and being able to show the other side our point of view or his point of view at that time. And it's something that is just very, very important to me that we really focus, and we do this on this call here. We praise our elected officials when they've done something that we agree with, and we'll call them out when they do something that is not favorable for the business community. With that, I do want to further my introduction of Jeff. He used to be the elected mayor here in Corona, elected city council. He was on the Parks Commission. And all during this time, he has carved out time also to run a very successful insurance brokerage business. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeff Miller.
Thank you, Bobby. I really, really appreciate that introduction. And I don't think you could have said it any better. It's an ugly, ugly political world we're in. And not sure if we'll ever get back to the good old days, but we'll just have to hope and pray. So, all right, before we get started, Anthony, I wanted to wish President and CEO a happy birthday. And I see some people on this call that might want to jump in and just share a story or two.
Oh, no. Look, we're on to advocacy. We're not on to aging me any more than I am, okay?
I'm not putting Yolanda on the spot, but I'm sure she has some story she'd love to share.
So fortunately, she's muted, and I've got more stories on her, so she better be careful. In fact, I'm looking at the list of people here. I think pretty much everyone I've got some dirt on, and if I don't, I will make it up, and I will embarrass the heck out of you. So, Jeff, I
want to say, this is Yolanda. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Yolanda.
But I met Bobby back in 1997, I believe it was, both Karen and Bobby. And nobody was in office and nobody held positions. And even then, at that time, Bobby was one of the most caring, loving people that I've met in this city. He has such a big heart, and he has really, really embraced our community like nobody else that I know of. And I really want to just wish you the best, the happiest, the most exciting birthday every year, Bobby.
Thank you.
Love you, and I don't want to embarrass you with a few stories. Bye.
Love you, and thank you all, and I sincerely appreciate it. I do want to respectfully ask so that we get back on task, because there's businesses to save out there, and there's information that Jeff Miller and our advocate Jeff Gibson will be sharing, things that we need to jump in and take care of. So I will take all the wishes, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate my team here and all of you that are on the call. However, I respectfully ask that we stay focused and get on with your agenda, please, Jeff.
Okay, Bobby, that's a deal. I hope you have a wonderful day. You deserve it. Enjoy, party, have fun, and we'll do it again next year. All right. I'd like to hand it off for a second to our chair of the board, if I don't mind. Paul Bender is on the line. You got a few words for
Thank
the
you.
illustrious group this morning?
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for being on the call. And I know Bobby's already really embarrassed. He is an absolute gift to the Corona Chamber community and to the business community of Corona. So I was thinking, I'm just getting my handbook redrafted because, as you know, the legislation in California changes so fast. I last had it done in 2018 and it's so out of date. So it's a lady called Lynn Hounsley, who has supported our chamber in the past, is helping me with it. And we agreed on Friday that we'd add in my vision and core values that I spent a lot of time kind of going over. And without taking too much time, I really believe that Bobby embodies, to bring it back to him and to embarrass him, he's going to go pink. He embodies these leadership and business values, and they are, mine are, it's integrity, accountability and ownership, compassion, and that comes back to having a big heart for people, respect, and most of all, or importantly, profitability, because if we don't help our business community become profitable and remain profitable, they can't stay in business. And I think that really embodies the purpose of our chamber and very much how Bobby, under his leadership and drive, we have been, I believe, one of the foremost chambers in the country. We cannot beat this man for his hard work. But those core values are very important to my business, and I believe every business in town. So thank you, Bobby, for what you do. Thank you to all of you for supporting our chamber. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Jeff.
Paul Bender, could you do me a favor and type in those core values that you have? Type them into the chat box for everyone. I think those would be important for people to know. And thank you for the kind words. Jeff, back to you.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Paul Bender. I want to thank our mayor, Wes Speak, is on the line. I'd like to give him a moment to give any updates that are going on in his world. But before that, so I'm putting you on deck, Wes. Today's meeting is sponsored by Corona Regional Medical Center. Corona Regional Medical Center is a 259-bed community hospital network. They employ more than 1,200 trained healthcare workers and have a medical staff of approximately 347 physicians. Corona Regional Medical Center has a professional staff that works around the clock and cares for so many individuals. Thank you, CRMC, for sponsoring this meeting. And I want to thank Linda Pearson, Linda from Corona Regional Medical Center. Give you just any quick updates from the hospital and COVID numbers or anything that you want to share. We can come back to Linda.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't get out from under mute. Anyway, we just are proud to be a sponsor, certainly of the chamber, and especially today because, you know, the hospital is so supportive of the chamber, and especially Bobby. And so on behalf of the hospital, Bobby, we just want to wish you a really happy birthday. And you asked about COVID, Jeff. We're pretty non-existent. I think yesterday we had one case. So that's good news. Just get your flu shots. You know, we're always pushing for preventative, and we're hearing we are going to have a flu season. So get your flu shots. And again, happy birthday, Bobby.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you for the sponsorship of today's meeting. I'd like to hand it over to our mayor, Wes Speak.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the time, and I was able to join today at a reasonable time, not jump in at the end. So thanks for going to me. And I want to join in the happy birthday, Bobby. A always happy to work with you and happy to work with the chamber. And our relationship goes back a long time, back to your mom, and hopefully we can all sing a good happy birthday from her as well. So let's see. We have a study session today. 3 kind of interesting items. The first one is a discussion of discounting fees, permit and building fees in the historic circle. The idea, that's an item that I brought up. It's to encourage single family housing in our historic districts, because the state is continuing to find ways to load up areas, especially ones that are lower income and in historic areas. So right now we were able to fight back some of the regulations to exclude those areas. However, I would rather be on the offensive than the defense. So if we can find ways to get some housing, single family housing built, instead of seeing 6 and 8 story apartments downtown, I would especially in our historic district, I would like that. The 2 other items, there's a communication update from our communications team. It's amazing how much information that we're getting out to people. I would recommend anyone, if you're around 4 o'clock or so, to tune in for that discussion, hearing about how many people we're communicating to, the absolute quality that we are putting out on not only what the city's doing, but what the business community is doing. And then lastly, there's going to be our first meeting on our branding update. And this is really an informational meeting to discuss the items that our consultant has found, and kind of true that up to how we all feel about our community. So I urge folks to tune in for those items. I think it'll be an interesting afternoon, and hopefully not too long. So that's it. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Wes. If anybody has any questions of Wes, feel free to put them in the chat, and if he's still on the line, he can stay on the line. We'll run it by him. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Anthony for announcements.
Thank you, Jeff. Just one quick announcement for today's briefing, and that is our November 10th Good Morning Corona. This is going to be one of our largest Good Morning Coronas of the year, and it is the last one of the year. So please make sure to get your seats. We are saluting, this is our salute to the military event. All veteran, active duty, and reservists receive free registration. However, we do ask that you register by November 4th, which is next Friday. As I mentioned, this is going to be one of our biggest Good Morning Coronas of the year. So make sure to get there early and help us honor all the brave men and women who have served this country. Sponsorships and exhibitor tables are also available. So please, if you have any questions or want to register, click the link that I will be posting in the chat, or feel free to call us here at the chamber and we will gladly assist you. And with that, I want to pass it back over to Jeff.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. That was quick. All right. I'd like to put Jeff Gibson on deck. I'll introduce him in a second. I just want to I always like to thank our nonprofits that join our call, those nonprofits in our community that are so important to the fabric of our quality of life. And again, a loyal attendees, Peppermint Ridge. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Jim, for coming on board. And I'm assuming you're still hiring, right? Yes. Good.
Yes,
Well,
and we have a couple vacancies. So if you know of anybody who's looking for a wonderful home that has developmental disabilities, send them our way.
and those
Thanks.
are rare, aren't they? Those are rare, aren't
Yes.
they,
Mhm.
Danny? Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. All right, so our consultant is Jeff Gibson. Jeff owns Occidental Communications Group. For 35 years, Jeff has specialized in political campaigns, political consulting, government affairs, government relations. And he just does an amazing job for our chamber. And he specializes in areas of environment and transportation and healthcare and housing. And with that, Jeff, you are up.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. one of the things, and I know Bobby's very self-conscious, but this also applies to Wes, this applies to Jeff Miller, and the team really that Bobby has put together. A large number of the team advocating for you, whether it's or representing you at the city, whether it's representing you at when we go to Sacramento, whether we go to Washington, D.C., are or have been business owners just like you. It's very unusual I've worked in 12 states, worked with dozens of governors, hundreds of mayors. It's very unusual to have that large of a number of people that have actually sat in your position and signed both sides of a check and understand what double entry accounting is and how difficult those challenges are, even when business is going very well. A lot of the times that we work with members of Congress or state senators or state assembly members of any sort of party, the challenge comes in that they've always either been an employee or they've been a public official or they've worked for a government agency. And so when we go in to negotiate on an item, they don't have that central core feel of, oh, that's why that's important. Okay, now I understand why. Now I understand the difference between that permit and this permit, or that schedule and this schedule. Whereas with Wes, whereas with Jeff Miller, whereas with Bobby, as business owners, they understand precisely the challenges that that each of us face and why these things are important. So and that's a tribute to Bobby, and I know he's been active, whether he's owned a business or all the way back into his high school years, and how deeply that's felt. And so that's a real tribute to the work that he's done and that each of you do. So on to major news. It's not receiving it has been major national news because it's embarrassing to California, and anything that's embarrassing to California becomes national news. But it's not getting much play inside the state. Is the University of California finished a major study of climate change emissions and found that over 17 years, and you could see each of the emissions types listed here on this chart. The orange, the shrinking orange in the middle of that chart is for electric power. The climate change gases that come from electric power, almost 100% of that reduction has been in the expanded use of natural gas. You can see that climate change gases have dropped in the power sector, even as we have taken San Onofre offline, which meant a big deal for us locally here in Corona, because about 40% of our energy came from San Onofre. If you think about it, for almost 50 years, Orange County produced absolutely no net carbon because 100% of their energy came from San Onofre. And so in any case, but you could see each of these sectors are, for the most part, continuing a fairly regular decline in the amount of carbon that's being produced, except that red line along the bottom, and it spikes in 2020. And what that spike shows is that all of that 17 years of savings, the work that you've spent, the $2 extra in gas that we pay at the pump now, all of the extra expenses that you've taken on as a business with your whether it's the emissions protections that you have for volatile chemical compounds, or think of the trillions of dollars in public and private expenses that we have spent. All of that was lost in 1 year to wildfires in 2020, with the large number of those fires set by arson. And that was where we end up, where 17 years of, and the news on that is that that 17 years of emissions savings were lost. What we think of here at the Chamber are 17 years of investment from each of us in trying to make the our environment better, our world a better place to live, were lost because the state took the state and the federal government over those 17 years took the taxes that we pay specifically for fire protection in wildfire areas and decided to spend it on programs that had no connection to actually taking out dead trees, to actually managing fire roads, to actually doing the things that we had been doing for the 150 years previously to successfully manage our forests. One of the things that you learn if you've ever been to Plymouth in Massachusetts or into Carmel is that when Europeans landed in this country, the thing that they talked about almost universally is how barren the coastlines were, that there there was almost no vegetation. And the reason for that is because the forests were not being managed using the types of techniques that we have now. And it's a 20-year, while we were all slaving away, and clearly there weren't protests in the street, we all cooperated with the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and we cooperated with the state. We worked through the policy system. When Jeff Miller was in the state assembly, he worked on it, but nobody, there weren't mass riots over the implementation of gas taxes or anything like that. We all played by those rules, and yet government took the funds that out of our taxes that they continued to commit were going to be preventing wildfires, made none of those investments. And as a result, in just 1 year, you can see it's that red line there that ends up going up past the dark blue line. Dark blue line is related to transportation. So think of all of the gas taxes that were paid throughout that for climate change impact, and that none of those went into managing the forest. So the forest became overgrown. The fire roads, it went 25 years without any sort of maintenance whatsoever. And in 1 year, all of those emissions for volatile chemicals, for carbon, for everything else were lost. This is from the University of California. We will be seeing a lot more about this in the coming days and weeks as the state goes into its special session on energy. It is no longer a special session just upon gas prices. When you're seeing the reporting in the media, you will see it based upon gas prices, but it is actually dealing with energy use. It's something that we're tracking very carefully because obviously that is a subtle change. And we know from our experience that when something is billed as being one thing and then it subtly changes once it gets within the Capitol. I've spoken with committee chairs in the for natural resources, for governance and finance, and it's not clear to them what the special session is going to be about. So that gets my spider senses tingling. So I will keep you up to speed. Happy to answer any questions you have on this pretty blockbuster report. Any questions, Anthony?
There are no questions at this time.
Okay.
Jeff, just real quickly, can you just give a brief explanation of what a special session is and what we are going to be doing as a chamber to track that?
Sure. So an extraordinary session. So a governor can call a special session, special or extraordinary session at any time, and the rules oftentimes are waived because an extraordinary, many of the committee hearings oftentimes are waived for extraordinary sessions because the idea is that there is a crisis or an emerging crisis. One of the classic special sessions was there were two special sessions, one on electricity deregulation in 2000, in which one of the few times in history all 120 members of the legislature agreed that that electricity needed to be deregulated, and which deregulated the retail price of gasoline, but fixed the wholesale price of gas. I'm sorry, the retail price of electricity was deregulated, but the wholesale price of electricity was highly regulated. And we all saw in 2001 and 2002, and then into 2003, what happened with blackouts, which up till that point were unthinkable. Now, in certain areas of California, obviously they are a fairly regular occurrence, unfortunately. But we lived through that extraordinary session. This extraordinary session was called by the governor. The governor calls the extraordinary session. It takes place in the legislature to deal with what he termed as gouging from the gouging at the pump, because California pays approximately Californians pay $2 to $2.10 more per gallon than even Hawaii on a regular basis. A business partner of mine just got back from Hawaii, and the price that he paid for gas at the Costco in Northern California was actually more than the price Hertz charged him for dropping off his car at the Honolulu airport with an empty tank. So, and that's just going off based on Hawaiian prices. So we've broken down in the past what most of the charges are on a price of gasoline that California has, $1.83 or thereabout in gas taxes. We are not defending oil companies. We're just trying to give you the information so that you can make your own decision about it. But clearly we have the highest taxes. The governor has said that he wants to impose an excess profits tax of 20 to 25% of the equivalent price of a gallon at the pump on oil companies. So that is what has generated most of the national attention, is that the California way to lower prices at the pump are to increase gas taxes by 25%. Now, in the calling of the extraordinary session, it can be up to the members of the legislature how they will conduct themselves. They can go through committee hearings, they could go through the normal public process, or they can just bring up bills straight onto the floor with very little debate. I mean, you've lived through a couple of extraordinary sessions, Jeff, related to budget and finance. It's a very anyway, you can describe it as well, but it really kind of wipes the slate clean of requirements on the legislature, and the legislature can conduct itself in a way that gives it great leverage in just determining behind closed doors, oftentimes, what the legislation is going to look like, and then just introduce it directly to the floor, which gives us a very limited opportunity to discuss it and take a public position, but which is why we're monitoring it so closely. Did I get that right, Jeff?
Yeah, just is there a time frame on when it's called and when we'll
Sure.
be able to track it and give the members
December
some
5th.
updates?
Sure. The extraordinary session starts on December 5th with the swearing in of the new legislature. And Wes, you are correct. An excess profits tax is the tax on the state would cap the amount of profits allowed to oil companies, and then above that tax, what are known as excess profits. So now excess profits tax have been imposed. They were imposed during World War II, in which case we actually had a collapse in the production of oil in the United States, and they had to be removed. They were reinforced in the early 70s. Again, if anyone looks at the 70s as a great time to be a buyer of gasoline, if you remember that era, I don't think anybody looks back historically and thinks that that was a successful policy. Those were junked in 1981, and as a result of them being junked, the price of a barrel of oil went from about $34 a barrel down to $13 within months, and as supply flooded onto the market. So we are looking as a state to constrict the production of oil. In fact, the governor just a few days ago announced that he would like to make it illegal to handle any sort of petroleum product within the state of California by 2040. That means that you can't have gas in your tank. That means that you can't pump oil here in California. It means you couldn't even transport it across the state, is kind of the vision that he laid out. Unfortunately, most of that would be most of that transportation uses tires, which are made from oil, on streets that are paved with asphalt, which is made from oil. So it's going to be an interesting time if that vision comes to pass, but we will see. We will keep you obviously updated. So that was one of the things that he asked for, an expansion of the extraordinary session already to handle the potential ban of any sort of petroleum-based activity in the United States. So I'm wearing a jacket that's made out of polyester, which is derived from petroleum. Many of us use pills that are produced from pharmaceuticals that are used from natural gas. So I mean, if you're really going to draw that out to its logical conclusion, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, that's where we are right now, and that's where we're going to keep you updated.
Don't forget makeup.
Yes, and makeup, and yes, almost all your
That's
industrial.
important.
No, it is. It is. No, absolutely.
All right, Anthony, any questions before we move on?
There are no other questions.
Okay.
All right.
Then moving on, yes, moving on to the next slide. So we have been doing a lot of work here in Corona. Last week, we talked about how Corona has is one of the few cities in our region and state that has a compliant housing plan, otherwise known as a housing element. But we try and just use as plain English as possible so that you don't need a PhD in government terminology. Basically has a housing plan for the entire community that meets state code, the requirements of state code. That's a very difficult thing to do, but because of the leadership of the city council and their hard work and some difficult choices they had to make, they did it. Well, as we've seen in the last 90 days, as many of you who are in real estate understand, the interest rates on mortgages especially have now touched 7%. And as the Wall Street Journal termed it yesterday, the Federal Reserve System went from being Bambi and turned into Godzilla. And so because we have a significant number of people that either rely on the price of their house for their own financial well-being, or we're looking to buy or sell or somehow involved in real estate on this call and throughout the chamber, we decided to track that. And here is the chart of mortgage originations over the last 7 years. You could see with the easing going into 2020 that there was a gigantic boom in mortgage origination. We've seen this in all of the activity around town. That mortgage origination also coincides, the entire 2019 to 2021 boom coincides with the governor and the legislature talking about a housing shortage in California, and something that we have to deal with. While we don't dispute that, clearly the market is making other moves. As you can see, that there was a cliff reached about 4 to 5 months ago. And when the Federal Reserve rate changes and hikes were being implemented, and everything fell off a cliff. Again, we're not going to make a judgment about whether that's good or that's bad. The Federal Reserve is trying to control inflation. They're doing so at a rate that is much more aggressive than any Federal Reserve has attempted going back to 1913 in terms of the number of rate increases and the size of the rate increases, both as a percentage and a actual. I mean, they're going at 0.75% every 6 weeks or so. So that's a very steep curve. But clearly it's having one of the desired effects, which was in real estate, to get unnecessary inflation out of the real estate market, and that clearly is a stunning success. So that's one of the things that housing in the city is going to have to continue to move on, and the city council and the community are going to continue to have to plan for housing. Meanwhile, the demand for new housing is going to appear to be in historic turmoil. And so that's one of the things that we're tracking going forward. Another reason that we're tracking this is the taxes that you pay, both property taxes and capital gains taxes are tied up with the number of home sales. As those both drop, those are two of the things that were funding the incredible bubble in the state budget surplus, which has, as we reported last week, has gone away and is now a structural deficit of about $4.5 to $5 billion. So, in any case, happy to discuss that with you, and any other questions you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. There are no questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. Thanks,
you,
guys.
Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Great report as always. We appreciate it. I'd like to want to take a moment to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy day to join us this morning. We know you've got a lot of different things pulling at you, and we appreciate, I know the Chamber appreciates your participation, and hopefully it will continue. Next slide. If you have any questions of our legislators, there's the contact information for our assembly member and senator. And if you want to reach out to them directly, you feel free. There's their information. I'd like to thank a few folks on the call before we adjourn. Former council member, Yolanda Carrillo. Thank you, Yolanda. Our mayor, current mayor, Wes Speak. Former mayor, former council member, Jason Scott. President of Norco College is on, Monica Green. And I think that's it. Okay. All right. With that, everybody, we have 13 days. I'd like to wish all the candidates, actually, I'd like to wish the candidate, any candidate on the call, good luck.
Thanks, Jeff.
And with that, everybody, be safe. And our meeting is adjourned for today until, wait a minute. Oh, I forgot to thank Corona Regional Medical Center again. I'm moving too fast here. Thank you again, Linda.
Thank you.
CRMC, they serve the communities of Norco, Corona, Eastvale, and is committed to quality healthcare. They're dedicated to the health and safety of everyone they serve. Learn more at coronaregional.com. And please join us next week, November 2nd, as we bring you more critical updates. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Have a great day.